Hello, welcome to Lesson 1 of the Intermediate Robotics course. Today, we'll be introducing you to Onshape and the basics, and also sketching. What is Onshape? Onshape is a CADing website mainly built with the purpose of engineering. You may have heard of other softwares that are very similar, like Blender or Tinkercad, to name a few popular ones. All these softwares have the same basic function as a 3D drawing tool, though for now, we'll be using Onshape. Why do we use/need Onshape? Well, it's really useful for creating, designing, and planning without wasting the money and time on real world materials. Onshape is also really nice because it allows for lots of collaboration in a website, allowing multiple people to work on one thing. Moving on to the very basics of Onshape. The first thing we'll be doing is creating a new document in Onshape. So if you quickly head over to Onshape in your browser, click the Create dropdown, click Document, name your document to whatever project you're currently doing. For now, you can just name it Test Document. And before you click Create, make sure that the document location is in the Sang Robotics class and in the correct teachers folder. Then you can finally click the Create button. Now, in the top right corner, you'll see a little cube. This cube is how you'll be able to manipulate your camera movement on your document. Using your mouse or trackpad, either hold right click and move the cube, or hold the two-finger click on the trackpad and move the cube. Also, if you want, you can click on the different faces, corners, or arrows on the cube and see how they manipulate the camera position. Finally, try to zoom in and out by scrolling up and down using either your trackpad or mouse. Now that you've gotten a hang of that, let's move on to looking at the toolbar. The toolbar is found at the top of your screen and holds every tool you'll need. We'll learn and practice using these tools throughout the week, but for now, just know that it's called the toolbar and is where you'll find all the tools we'll need. Next, there's the feature tree, found on the left-hand side of your screen. This is where you'll see what each action/tool you've used will show up. So if you make a sketch, for example, it'll end up there where you can edit it or just view it. You don't have anything except for the default geometry there right now, so don't worry too much about it. But as we move on, make sure you acknowledge and are familiar with the feature tree. Finally, there's the tabs at the bottom of your screen. Currently, you have one tab, most likely called Part 1 or Part Studio 1. As you get more advanced and create new parts and assemblies, the tab bar will fill up with more things. So make sure you keep this part organized by creating tab folders and renaming the tabs. Now onto sketches. The first step is creating the sketch. So at your toolbar, click the sketch button, then click one of your planes. The planes are those three flat squares in the middle. Click on one of them. Now that you're in sketch mode and have selected a plane, at the toolbar, select one of the shapes/lines and start sketching on the plane. You can do this by clicking on that tool, clicking on your selected plane once, then moving your mouse and clicking a second time to confirm that sketch. Once your sketch is confirmed, two numbers will show up. These are the shape measurements. For now, just ignore them and click the escape button. Now that you've messed around with the sketches a little, try to create these different shapes using the line tool, rectangle tool, circle tool, and polygon tool up at the toolbar. Now that you've done that, see how these lines are blue? This means that they're undefined. But what does it mean to be undefined? Take a quick second to think about it. You got it? Well, it means that the shape measurements are defined. They don't have any. So right now, you can just drag the shapes anywhere and into any size you want, which isn't good if you want precision. So let's quickly define them. Define them by pressing the dimension tool or the D key on your keyboard. Then click on the line you want to define and insert a measurement. You can also click on one point of a shape and then click on the origin to define how far away the shape is from the origin. When a shape/line is defined, it will turn black rather than blue. Now take a second to play around with the dimension tool to get a feel for it and get comfortable with defining things and etc. Some tips when defining. As said before, you should anchor your shapes to the origin in some way so the shape you're making isn't going to get dragged off into the void. Also, when creating sketches, you can create the rough size, then go back and create the correct measurements. No matter what, though, a defined shape is better than an undefined one, so always make sure you define your shapes. Lastly, if you make a mistake, just undo it by clicking Ctrl Z. Don't delete it. It makes life a lot easier and simpler when you just undo. Now that you've learned a lot more about defining your sketches, go and finish or do that right now. All the blue lines should turn black when you finished. This is what a defined sketch should look like. The measurements don't need to be the same, but the overall look of it should be very similar. When you get your sketch looking like this, click the green check mark at the top right to confirm the entire sketch. Once you confirm the entire sketch, all of the measurements should disappear and the lines should turn gray. Moving on to the mini project for this lesson. Try to recreate this smiley face. You can do this in another part studio, which you can make by clicking the plus symbol at the bottom where the tabs bar is, then clicking part studio and creating a sketch from there. Now that you've made an undefined sketch, go and define it. There should be 0 blue lines. This is what it may look like, or should at least look similar to. Finally, if you want more practice, you can do this name project. Write your name using a sketch and then define it. That will be all for lesson 1 of the intermediate robotics curriculum. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you next time.